Hello, 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 hello.
Hello, hello. You hear me?
Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Good evening and welcome to the Budget and Finance Committee. Today is Wednesday, September 27th, 2023. Voting members to my left, we have Councilor at Large and Vice Chair of this committee, Ana Levy. We have to my right, Councilor District E, Estefan Infante. And also to my right, we have Councilor District C, Gregory del Rosario. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Act of 2022, this meeting of Budget and Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and via remote participation. A reminder that a person who would like to listen or to view this meeting while in progress might either attend in person at the location above or use one of the following access locations: the Lawrence City Council Facebook page, also the Lawrence City Council YouTube page. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. We have a few items today, but before we jump into the agenda, we have a few minutes that we need to approve. Councilors, can I get a motion to approve minutes from February 15, 2023, February 27, 2023, March 15, 2023, and March 29, 2023?
Second.
There is a motion on the table, properly second discussion. I hear none. At this point, I call the questions. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. So, councilors, we have a few items today that we're going to be discussing. The first item, we're going to go by order. The first item we have is the approval of the TIF agreement for Heffron Bros Boiler Company. It was put together by Daniel McCarthy, the land use planner. So Dan, please take that opportunity to explain to us this agreement. All right, you may. Repeat that last part you mentioned? Can you repeat the last part you mentioned, that they've been in this, they've been in the city for 75 years? All right, councilors, I would like to provide an opportunity to Connor to speak on behalf of the company. So to explain to us a little more about the company, what they're planning on doing. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So we would like to hear from you a little more about the company, what you're planning on doing from your perspective.
Yeah, of course. I've had the pleasure of meeting a number of your colleagues, and it's been great building a relationship with the city. I've been with Helfrich Brothers full-time for about a year, but I grew up at our shop that we've been at since 1948. And this year we're celebrating, proud to celebrate our 75th year in business. So again, I learned how to ride a forklift there, you know, how to put the mail away, how to take a ride through the overhead crane, my older brothers. Sorry, am I coming across clearly? Is my audio coming across clearly?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, I'm just getting some feedback on your ends.
Yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, we have a long-standing history in the city. You know, my grandfather started the company. My father is currently the CEO and president. I work there with my two older brothers, my cousin, my sister-in-law, and a lot of people that I've known that have worked there for 20, 30 years. You know, tomorrow we're going to celebrate someone's retirement at the Loft in North Andover. He's worked for Helfrich Brothers for over 45 years. So we have a lot of deep relationships at our company, and we're very proud of that. And another thing we're very proud about is the growth we've experienced over the past 5 years. In the last 5 years, our company has grown our revenue by 53%. We've increased our headcount to 64%, or by 64%, excuse me. In Lawrence, we're over 100 full-time employees, including over 30 residents of Lawrence. And the average salary in our shop is over $105,000, and that's with full benefits. So we take a lot of pride in our employees, and we're very prideful of the amount of retention we get. Employees typically don't leave our company. If anything, we've seen 2, 3 generations of family members work at our business. So we take a lot of pride in treating our employees fairly, and also providing them with opportunities to grow within the company. You know, our current COO started working on the floor as a 16-year-old for my grandfather, and he's been there 20, 25 years, and he's currently in a senior management position. So when we take people into our family, we mean it. We teach them how to weld. We teach them how to use a machine. if their speaking isn't that strong and they want to improve their communication skills, we pay for their English speaking classes. If they want to learn a software skill so they can improve and work on a different machine that will result in higher pay and potentially a management position, we pay for that. And if they pass the class, they get a bonus upon graduating from that class. So we take deep pride in our employee base and giving opportunities for growth. And I think that's a testament to why our company has grown so much over the past 5, 6, 7 years. You know, when my dad took over the company from his dad in 1982, we were 4 employees. And today in Lawrence, we're over 100 full-time. So as it relates to the TIF, what we do with a lot of our profits is plow it back into the company. We buy new equipment. We hire more people. We try and invest in new real estate. And what we want to keep doing is investing in ourselves and our growth in the city. So with this TIF, how we see it is it will go hand in hand with our growth strategy, right? We're planning on buying that building that's next to us, 43 Merrimack Street. We want to do a full renovation. Over the next 5 years, we anticipate adding 60 new jobs. And that's everything from unskilled labor, skilled labor, welders, millwrights, machinists, administrative staff, engineers, you name it. There's a number of different positions that we'll be looking at. You know, probably in the past month or two, I think we've hired either 4 or 6 employees from the Voc. So, you know, my grandfather used to hire from the Lawrence Voc. So we've always valued that relationship. And whenever we can hire local, homegrown men or women, that's always what we're trying to do. So we've been in the city for 75 years. We want to keep growing here and be here for another 75 years. And any economic support that we can get from the city, we think will help continue to spur that growth. Thank you.
I have a few questions. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me there? Yes, no? Okay. I'm gonna hear it.
Can you hear me there? Okay. So
There's a little bit of feedback.
yeah, I know. So I would like to I want to make sure you hear my question. So the new investment that you have current. Okay. I want you to tell me more about the investment you're planning on doing that you have 100% secure that is going to be invested, and how many jobs you're going to be creating in the next 5 years. I know that you mentioned that you're planning on getting a building, but that's a plan. So tell me what you have right now that you're planning on doing and how many jobs you're going to be creating in the next 5 years. That not a plan, I mean, like something that is tangible, that you can tell, yes, this is what it is.
Sure. So I guess the first part of the question, yes, it is a plan, but we currently lease a portion of that building, and we have an option to purchase it, which we are 100% planning on exercising if we can get these incentives in place. So that's something we're very confident will happen. And with that, we will essentially renovate a building that has been vacant for quite a while. And so with that, over the next 5 years, in year 1, 2024, we were anticipating between 10 and 20 jobs. And then over the next 4 years after that, I believe it was 40 more. So we expect between 50 and 60 net new jobs. And if you, and I understand that might sound like a lot, given, it's 5 years and that's a lot of jobs. But if you look at, if I showed you a graph of our headcount growth over the past 5 years, our growth trajectory matches what we're projecting, because right now we have so much work we can't do because we don't have enough space, we don't have enough machinery, and we don't have enough talent. So right now we've been very hyper-focused on finding more space, recruiting the right employees that want to work hard and want to learn and want to grow, and then buying new equipment. With a grant from the state, we just purchased a robotic welding system that we believe is cutting edge and is going to make so many of our process more efficient. And we don't view that type of technology as a job killer, as some people think. We view that as an opportunity for a robot to do a mundane task where someone else can now go learn a more skilled trade within our shop. We have over 100,000 square feet right now with a lot of machinery. There's a lot of different roles and things that people can do within our shop. So if a robot can do something that's pretty standard, pretty simple, the person that was doing that task beforehand maybe can now go learn a more advanced machine, which is higher pay, more responsibility, and ultimately it makes them more marketable if they ever did want to go pursue a different job, which it happens, and we're always encouraging people to do whatever's best for them. We're always happy to write a letter of recommendation or support them however we can. So I hope that answers your question, sir.
Partially. Well, essentially,
is not. Essentially, what I would like to know is, yeah, I would like to know more, perhaps. That's,
5 years, which includes the acquisition of the real estate, the renovation of the real estate, overhead cranes, new machinery, new foundation. A lot of structural work needs to occur to get that building to be functional.
So what I'm saying is usually when we have this type of application in front of us, is because we have not necessarily a plan, but we have something tangible that they're already here in the city, they invest in. And you guys are already here in the city, but I don't see the future investment without the TIF. So I just want to make sure that you guys, let's say perhaps that the TIF doesn't go through, you still have this type of investment in the city that you're going to do in the next 5 years. So I'm not clear, so if you can clarify me on that. So them.
If I can speak to how the investment, if the investment doesn't come forward in the form of jobs, the state will come and take their money back. There's a provision written into the agreement that says if they don't produce the jobs that are in the agreement, then the city has a right to cancel it and they have to pay the full taxes on it. So the purpose of the program is to incentivize the creation of jobs in the community. They have committed to making 60 jobs over 5 years. The state will have a reporter who handles this case, and they'll come down and check to see that, make sure that these jobs have been created, and that they measure this over the period of time. The state has given $725,000 in tax credits towards this investment. The proposed tax savings is a little over $100,000 in taxes they'll save. If they don't get the TIF from the city, the state takes away the tax credits. If there's no TIF, there's no tax credit. And that's part of the program. That's the way the program works. The state wants the city to have an investment in this project, to have some skin in the game, as they say. And as I said, we've toured this building with the mayor. The mayor's been big support of this. He loves the jobs that are there. They're going to people, graduates from Lawrence Vocational School are getting these jobs, and they're high-paying, benefit jobs.
Councilor Infante?
Thank you, through you, Chair. So from Mr. McCarthy's explanation, the incentive is they have to fulfill the agreement of this TIF to create the jobs over a span of 5 years, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Well, the company's representative has already made a mistake. In his answer to the Chairman Rodriguez, he said that they're going to create a net to 50 to 60 jobs over the 5 years. This agreement, the TIF agreement, directly states 60 new jobs within the 5 years. So how are we sure that they're going to fulfill 60 when their own representative right now just said net 50 to 60 new jobs?
I can answer that.
Yes, go ahead.
In full transparency, I've filled out a lot of paperwork for a number of different things over the past 4 to 6 months. I don't have anything in front of me right now. I was confident about the 60, but wanted to give a range to make sure I spoke accurately. But yes, that is what when I sat down with the CEO, CFO of our company, and we did our projections based on history and what we think revenue growth can be. We were confident in that 60.
Thank you for your answer, but thank you, Connor. So I hear that you and the company and the company's representatives are confident in the 60, but the word confidence is not in this agreement. It's required, the 60 new jobs, according to this agreement that we councilors have in front of us right now.
Any questions, councilors? Councilor De Rosario?
Through you, Chair. It's just a comment. As much as I love this program, every time I talk to Mr. McCarthy, I get disappointed. It seems like this program only had benefit the South Side, and now I notice, or I find out today, that we don't have it in the North Side. Now we have to do an amendment for anybody in the North Side to get part of this. But Mr. McCarthy has been working this for years. Yes, for years. In my district, I was working and pushing for a TIF, for an investment. And today, after weeks of talk and pushing, today, I find out that my area is not in it, and the major have to do an amendment. But this has been done for years. And as much as I like this, I get disappointed when I see that it's only one side of the city. It's only one type of people getting this benefit. And that's why our city on this side hasn't grown at all. Hasn't grown at all. Merrimack Street, big investment. How do you think how do you know that big brick building was done? Because he got it. How do you think that this gentleman has got to this, including he made a mistake? I'm all for it, but still, of a sense, we need to have a balance where everybody get a chance to actually get this type of benefits. Today, I find out, pushing for months, and I was called to actually be part of this, and I was happy due to the fact that the TIF might come my way. And it's not coming my way, it's gonna take longer. And this is the way that Mr. McCarthy operates, and nobody wants to see it. I'm the only one catching up and you catching up, but this is the only way he operates. It's only one side that he works for. And the less fortunate and less people, like in my district, which is District C, we need to do a whole type of ball game to get this type of benefits. But the people on the other side, and McCarthy has been working for years, it's been getting this type of deals and this type of benefits. And when we try to get it, it's, I don't know, I don't even know what to tell you, Chair. I'm sorry, man.
Right, now, let's
Can I
clarify
respond to
this
that?
then. Yes, give me 1 minute. Let's clarify a few things out of Councilor De Rosario's presentation and opinion. So please clarify that, because to me, I think that the TIF is for the city of Lawrence.
Yeah.
Or, can you clarify from those, please?
We're talking about two different programs. The
Right.
program that's in front of us is the EDIP. It's an Economic Development Incentive Program. The property that he discussed with me was looking for an HDIP, which is a Housing Development Incentive Plan. It was a project to build 40 units of housing on Broadway. I spoke with the owner of that building. I told him that the HDIP, when it was created, was for the downtown overlay district. So it is on both the north and south side of the HDIP. I spoke to Mr. Del Rosario today, and I told him after speaking with him, I was going to approach the mayor about amending it to bring it to the North District to assist this person. But they are two totally different programs. One is to create housing at market rate. The other one is to create jobs. The one we're here today for is the EDIP, which we've had in place for the last 18 years in the city. The HDIP is relatively new. It's about 4 years old. We've only used it on several projects in the downtown area.
Okay, quick question. The program that it's called TIFF, which one is that one?
The TIF is the EDIP, the Tax Incentive Program. The HDIP, yep. That's correct.
One.
The HDIP, they refer to, it's a different agency, it's done by the Department of Housing and Community Development. They call it a TIE, T-I-E, Tax Incremental Expenditure.
Okay.
So it's a similar program, it's the same concept. We're locked into the number for the TIE. I think we did a couple projects like this for the Trejo brothers, for Johan Lopez, we did a HDIP for.
And that didn't come in front of city council, that doesn't have to come from city council, right?
So it did come before the council, and you agreed to the program because you locked into a rate. The TIF agreement has a flexible rate, so we have to come before you every time to discuss the rate. The HDIP has got the Mayor Rivera at the time chose the minimum amount of incentive, which was a 5-year, 50% agreement, and that's locked in. That's the only thing the city can provide. The housing does not have to come back to the city council for everyone.
That's what. Okay,
You probably voted on the program
On the
in
program
total.
itself.
In the first one, I think the first one was for Lapoli.
Like all, yeah. Well, I have a few questions. Councilors, any other questions for the first round? I have a couple of questions on the second round now that we're starting up. On page 9 of the agreement, page 4 of the 9 pages of the application, there is a few things there that I would like to clarify. It was brought up by Councilor Levy, and I would like to clarify that. 4 out of 9. So there is a few zeros there, so I wanted to kind of go through that. So total number of existing full-time employees that are mass resident and work in the project. So there's 0, 0, 0, 0. Is that the reason for that? 4 out of 9? No, out of the application. There is a few zeros there, so there is a couple of questions that says, total number of existing full-time employees that are mass resident and work in the project. The second one is 0 there. Total number of full-time employees that are mass resident working on-site at the project facility located 2 days or more per week. There are 0 there. And then there is the other 2 questions that are 0 as well. There is any reason for that, or there is the actual number Probably that's a typo. All right, we get an answer next time. So when we send it up, if we send it up to the full council, please clarify those. I wanted to ask a few other questions. I know that Mr. Corner, he mentioned that they have like about 30 people from Lawrence that work at the facility. And you currently have about 200 employees? How many employees total?
So it fluctuates. I would say at the time of this report, we had 30 employees from Lawrence. Since then, we've hired more from Lawrence, so that number would have increased. I have not run it since. And our overall number fluctuates for this reason. So we have about 100 full-time people in Lawrence that come to work every day. But then we also have a large field and plant division, which fluctuates from anywhere between 200 and 300 people, usually 300 during peak season. So you know, you could call our headcount 400 employees with temp employees who are out on the road. But today in Lawrence, yes, 100.
Right? So, yeah, is the compromise of the 60 employees that you're gonna be hiring in the next 5 years, are those employees gonna be from Lawrence?
I would think a good amount of them will be, because we're looking for skilled labor and we recruit from the local vocational schools. We have an employee full-time who came, he was the former director of NAMC. So he has a lot of relationships with the vocational schools. So it is our goal to expand those relationships within the local voc schools, within, you know, we have high school students from Prince High School recently tour our facility. So yes, it has always been our goal to hire local homegrown talent.
Councilor Infante. We're gonna go back on that, but Councilor Infante wanted to ask a question.
I have a comment, clarification, regarding the vocational technical schools. Our local school, Greater Lawrence Technical School, we're talking about boilers, so I do know that they added their HVAC program to the Lawrence After Dark program, which is when Lawrence High kids do half of the day in Lawrence High, and then the other half they come to Greater Lawrence Tech to learn the trade. The majority of the students at Greater Lawrence Tech are from Lawrence, so if they're in fact using this recruitment method of recruiting the majority from the tech school, then I think it's safe to say that these new jobs will be fulfilled by Lawrence residents.
I tend to agree on that. Looking at the percentage, if they have about 200 employees and only 30 from Lawrence, that's 15%. So yeah, that's why I asked the question. So it will, at the end of the day, are we going to have a compromise from the company that is going to have a specific amount of jobs that are going to be greater than 30 employees, since that's the baseline, that are from Lawrence? And the reason that I'm asking is because we need to promote people from Lawrence to get jobs. And if you guys are offering good jobs, and then we are providing incentive for companies to do that, right? So we need to make sure that at some point, somehow, we have some type of agreement on the amount of job that above the baseline is 30 we're going to have. Yes, it's like I said, that it might be from Lawrence because of the way you guys are hiring, but I mean, I want to see a little more than just that.
wages, our benefits with other employers in the area? Do we get people from Southern New Hampshire, from Lowell? Yes. Do we have engineers that come from Boston? Yes.
I understand.
And is, you are looking for a 10-year staff, which is a good amount of years. I think that this is gonna be my first, if not the second TIF that I approve for that loan for 10 years. Usually the program goes up to 5 years, never 20 like before, or few 10 years. So I want to make sure that if we are talking about producing jobs, that those jobs stay in the city of Lawrence. At least the majority of them, since we are talking about using a program that is to produce jobs. If you produce jobs that are from outside of the city, that's not doing any good, especially in the Marimar Street, that everybody take the highway right away. So you know what I mean? It's like, I want to incentivize the local economy by creating more jobs and using this type of program, of course. But I mean, it's kind of like, you know, we gotta have some type of agreement here within the agreement to ensure that at least we have the baseline of 30 and then anything above. I'm not saying that the 60 new jobs in the next 5 years is gonna be from Lawrence, but at least something that we can feel comfortable with. Okay with that?
So just some background on that number. Based on the amount of square footage that we're hoping to acquire, and just looking at that math based on our backlog in business, that's the number that we're comfortable over a 5-year period. But if you guys aren't comfortable with that, then we're happy to.
No, we're good with the 60. But I'm talking about that, an agreement within the agreement to make sure that part of those jobs, or majority of those jobs, stay in Lawrence. So Councilor Levy just said 40 jobs, right? 40, I mean, something around there that we can say, look, we give this stuff to this company that is being in Lawrence for a good amount of years, and they're gonna create this amount of jobs that are gonna stay in Lawrence. At least the number of 30 is not gonna be the baseline anymore. Now it's gonna be a new number, perhaps 70, that are gonna be from Lawrence. So you guys are willing to? No, I mean hire people from Lawrence.
That's our number one goal. It's hard to really put a number on it and to look forward because there is a lot of competition for talent, particularly local talent. But yeah, I mean, that's, you know, just to give one other example, we have an employee referral program. The majority of the men and women that work in are from Lawrence and have family in the area. So if they refer someone that ends up working at our company, they're paid a bonus. So we literally incentivize them to recruit friends and family, and people have brought on cousins, sons. I think there's one family where it's 2 brothers and then 4 of their cousins all work at Helfrich Brothers. So we like people who enjoy working for us and then want to bring their family because they know they're happy there. So that's something that we rolled out recently to be more competitive for local talent.
Okay, perfect. So there is a few questions that maybe we can finish up, and I encourage you to be present next meeting, please, because I mean we can ask better questions, and the answer will be, I believe, more understandable. And so there is a few questions in the book that you might be able to answer next week. So our next meeting is going to be next week, and we're going to be discussing this week, hopefully. So talking about the baseline of people from Lawrence that are higher, if that baseline is gonna increase by a specific amount of people, of the jobs, the new jobs that you're gonna be creating that are people that are from Lawrence, local hiring, I would like to know that, not necessarily a goal, but a tangible number that are gonna be from Lawrence. And also, we're gonna clarify a few things on page 4. Those numbers, 4. Yeah, the zeros. And then any other questions, councilors, that we would like to see, not necessarily now, but eventually when they come back? You wanna speak? Councilor Levy.
Thank you, Chair. It's just only a clarification. I see that you said that you had like a 200 employees right now. Only no more than maybe 30 employees are from Lawrence. That is my understanding right now. So from the 200. So we would like to be something equitative, that, you know, that's, that we need to increase that amount, you know. So you're gonna have 260 employees, at least 40% of those employees should be from here, from Lawrence. Huh? What, from the 260?
No, you only have 30 right now. They're not gonna increase to 40%, which is
What?
basically
But
200.
something, you know, just to,
Through you, yeah. Even if you say yes, that he's gonna hire 100 guys from Lawrence, who's gonna go back and check on the company that they actually hire 100 people from Lawrence? In a year or two. Just a sample. Who's gonna go back? He's gonna say yes. Everything we said, he's gonna say yes. They're gonna adjust. Those numbers are gonna come fixed when they come back on Tuesday. They say, yes, we passed this. Who's gonna go back to the company 5, 6 years later and make sure that it's 100 guys from Lawrence that is there?
If we put a requirement that these workers have to be from Lawrence, then a new hire that works here for 5 years gets an opportunity to move to another city, he's required to stay in Lawrence? Is that what we're talking about?
If we're giving them a TIF for 10 years, I'm assuming that they're gonna stay here for 10 years.
so now that you, I'm sorry.
Councilor Levy.
Sorry, so now that you mentioned that, what happens if we say, okay, this is gonna be a thing for 10 years, but they decided to move in 5 years, what is gonna happen?
The TIF will end. If they move next year, the state will take back their money and the TIF will end. The idea is that they're committing to stay, that they're buying a new building and investing $7.5 million in that building. That's the purpose behind this.
All right, so next week, we would like to see some type of negotiation that they have on the building.
I can provide that, but is this going up to the full council for next week?
Next week?
Well,
Yes.
I'm assuming next week because I'm assuming that the council are gonna make a determination here. Or it can be at this level, so it's whatever.
As I mentioned earlier, there's a requirement that the state is looking for this vote back by the end of next week. October 6th is the date that I was given when they want to vote back from the city.
So you say that the state want what?
The state voted on this last week to give the tax incentives, the tax credits. One of the requirements is that they have to have this TIF agreement back to them before a certain date it gets approved.
What day? Because we cannot be rushing on
October
this.
6th.
It's always happen like that, oh my God. Go ahead.
McCarthy, have you noticed that every time you come here, it's a deadline for us? That we don't have time? The paperwork is not accurate. We asking questions, he's not answering the right questions, and you will still have a deadline for us to make a decision. You should be flexible, because we need more information.
I'm more than flexible. It's the state that's not flexible.
Okay, motion to table.
There is currently a motion to table right now. Can I hear a second? Can I hear a second? There is no second for the, there is a motion to table, properly second. I call the question. I call the question, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, that this item has been tabled. Thank you, Mr. O'Connor. We're gonna continue the discussion next,
2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from now. Okay? And I hope that you can be here so you can have a little bit more, we can have a better communication. All right? Thank you so much. Next item on the agenda, we have item 34323, which is the authorization to spend grant for the amount of $139,805 from the Mass Department of Public Health for Lawrence, Mass, in motion of safe route to school, park, and open space, and healthy food access. Alicia Miller, she's here with us to discuss about this $139,000 coming to the city of Lawrence. So welcome, Alicia, welcome back again.
Sorry.
How to
Good
start the
evening,
record.
Councilors. Alicia Miller, City of Lawrence Mayor's Health Task Force.
So welcome, Alicia. Thank you for being here, and please explain to us this $139,000. What is the plan, and so far, so on. I like the part that says safe route to school. I like that part. So explain to us a little more.
So the city is one of 10 communities across the Commonwealth that that is designated a Mass in Motion community, which means that we're looking at physical activity and food access in its broadest terms. We are in the second year of a four-year round of funding, and this year we're looking at really activating Safe Routes to School. We've been working very closely with the Lawrence Public Schools, and this year we're looking to deepen conversations in the Frost School, the Gilmet. We've already met with them. There was a meeting with the PTO yesterday. And we'll continue work with the Partham. We're also looking to do some combined work with the Bruce School and the Hennessy, along with the Gilmet, because they're in such close proximity. You might know that the Bruce School was the first recipient of the Lawrence schools for the Mass in Motion, the Safe Routes to School engineering monies, and so we're really looking to get kids moving. We're trying to disrupt childhood obesity in the city and overweight, and so one of the ways that we do that is through physical activity. And so we're really trying to engage parents this year around that piece. We're also looking to do some work with small businesses, particularly in this Lower Tower Hill space, looking at how we can support small businesses with increasing access to healthier food options. And we would want to learn from the small business owners what are some of the barriers that they're seeing and how we can influence some of that through policies and system changes. And then learn from the residents what are their needs and where are the gaps that we could take an opportunity to work in that space. And then we're going to be working with the rec department on parks, increasing equitable access to parks in our city. So this year we're really doing a deeper dive, looking at our ordinances that are in place and looking to shore up wherever there are gaps. We know that some of our ordinances are pretty old. They're not necessarily moving with the times, so to speak. And so really making sure that if there's a gap access, we can shore those up. We can talk about it, whether it's in infrastructure, whether it's in your ordinances, however it is, we can work on those things.
Councilors, any questions in regard to this item? I hear none, so at this point, I entertain a motion.
Motion to send to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
So move.
All right, there is a motion on the table, properly second discussion. I hear none, so at this point, I call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you, Alicia. No, I mean, I'm gonna continue go through. Well, thank you. Yeah, she have another one right there. Item, the next item is item 34423, which is the authorization to spend grant funds for the amount of $718,008. Fed Department of Health and Human Services, racial and ethnic approaches to community health reach in the Lower Tower Hill area. So please explain to us again this grant.
So REACH is the programmatic parallel. REACH is the programmatic parallel to Mass in Motion. So Mass in Motion takes care of policy systems, environmental changes, anything programmatic that we would want to shore that up. We have to figure out how to find other funds to pay for that programming. About 2.5 years ago, we got some information, de-identified information from the health center, and that showed the rates of diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease among Lawrence residents who are patients of the health center. When we layered that on our maps, we found that there is a space in the Lower Tower Hill area, and let me see if I remember the boundaries, between Water Street and Ames Street, and what's the name of that street that the Gilmet is on? Over to Broadway. So we decided that we're going to concentrate on that area, start there, see how much we can impact those chronic diseases, and then work very intently in that area for the first 2 years of the grant, and then move into other areas of Lawrence that also have similar needs. We've intentionally done that because sometimes working on a smaller footprint, we get a higher return on investment. And so really paying attention, working with residents and others in the Lower Tower Hill space to really look at what are the factors that are driving these rates up and see how best to impact them and bring them down. So we'll be working with our medical partners, we'll be working with the Lawrence Public Schools, again, looking to work with the corner stores, anybody who can influence or impact access to healthy foods, access to physical activity. We've reached out to the Lawrence Biking Group to see how we can work with them to increase kids' ridership. We're talking with the Lawrence Public School Administration to really shore up and get support for walking to school, walking buses. We're actually this year really being intent on the school calendar. So the first walk audit that we're going to be doing with a multidisciplinary team will be on October 18. It's the first half day for the city, for the Lawrence Public School system. And so we're going to be walking with parents, folks from DPW. Hopefully we'll have someone from the police department, just so, and you, Councilor Rodriguez. But we'll extend the invitation just so that we can see, everybody can see what the conditions are that kids would have to walk through to get to get to school and to get back home. A few years ago, we got some funding and we were able to do some walking and create some walking maps. So we're looking to really educate parents on those, how to use them. Other groups are interested in using them. So it won't be just safe routes to school, it's safe routes to anywhere you need to go. Safe routes to the doctor, safe routes to the bodega, safe routes to church. If it's good for an 8-year-old, it's good for an 80-year-old. And we're really trying to impact aging in place.
For how long is this grant? So it's how many years?
So the REACH grant is for 5 years. How much we get is dependent on how well we work each year. So every year we'll get our funding.
All right, great. Councilors, any questions in regard to this grant? Councilor Levy?
I'm sorry. Just only a quick question. You said that this is fund for 5 years. The same amount, are you gonna get it?
depend on the work.
No, it's dependent on our work each year. We'll know what our allocation is. This allocation is for the first year.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor De Rosario?
Thank you, through you, Chair. It's very refreshing to have something like this after what we have. It's refreshing. How engaged is actually Lawrence Public School in this? How engaged they are? And I have a comment on the item, the pass, and I'm sorry I missed it, and it's that I like the idea of involving the little business due to the fact that I see in other communities, they involve those little businesses, the little bodegas and restaurants. And also some cities are using their food. They find out that it's healthier and cheaper to buy their food from our local vendors than those big contracts that Lawrence Public School has, and the food is half of healthy. So I like that idea, and just tell me how engaged is the Lawrence Public School in this?
So I'm happy you asked that. We've tried for years, really. We've tried for years, but the Lawrence Public School is now at a place where they've approached us and asked us to help them create a Safe Routes to School task force. So Lawrence Public School actually has a Safe Routes to School task force that has as part of its membership folks from DPW, folks from the schools, of course, folks from the police department. So we have a multidisciplinary team, and the work that we've done, Safe Routes to School actually came up with a strategic plan. They created a strategic plan for the Lawrence Public Schools across the board, because we have a big piece there on equity. So we don't want things to just happen in one school. We want it to happen right across the board so everybody's getting the same benefit. So the Lawrence Public School is very involved. Nothing without us, nothing for us without us. I believe in that. So if we're going to have any beneficial impact, we can't plan without people. So we have to include the people that are there. People are our community assets. So our residents, our business people, our churches, we're gonna try to include everybody in this conversation. If people choose not to be included, it won't be because we haven't extended the invitation.
So there is one thing, two things here. Lawrence Public School is reaching out after so much work that we invest. I want to make sure that we mention that there is other schools in Lawrence that are willing to work with us. The charter schools, perhaps, I'm pretty sure that they if you go to them, they implement the programs when it comes to walking to school, because it's the same challenges, the same students, but somehow the results are a little different, or substantially different, perhaps. And I leave it at that point. So another thing that I would like to say is that when it comes to walking to school and so far so on, we need to kind of like the message. We need to be careful with that, especially at the school level, because what I have from the parents last Tuesday, it was that the school is saying that now we need to walk. And I was like, I don't think they said that, but I think it will be beneficial if you walk. So that's basically what we need to be careful a little bit with the message, because it could be misinterpreted, and we don't want that within the community.
So we'll be working with parents to figure out the best way to do this. And we understand that not everybody will walk. Different people have different challenges, and so we respect that. We just want it to be an option for those kids and those parents who want to walk. And so as we roll this out, we will be engaged with the PTOs and folks from the churches and whoever else wants to come on board and be part of it. It will be a community conversation and a community effort.
Another out of alleyways. So they might, we do one, because we think like, park, the,
Point taken.
Councilor Infante.
Thank you. I want to point out about the alleyways, and it's because I've recently had this conversation with our DPW. They're owned by the state, and they're trying to. That's the conversation I had. The chair is shaking his head. That's the conversation I had. I don't know, but the point is that you're gonna have to have a very in-depth conversation with DPW, and if we need to bring in our state reps, whatever it takes, then we have to do that.
They're involved in the, as I said, they're part of the LPS Safe Routes to School Task Force, and so they're involved. I know with Safe Routes to School, one of the things, when we talked about security, one of the things is high visibility. So alleyways, unless they promote high visibility, it wouldn't necessarily be considered a safe route. And certainly that is information, conversations we can have with the police department and other emergency personnel as we pursue this.
Councilors, at this, Councilor Levy?
So if this is approved, from what time to, from, what is the program is gonna be running from the time? It's a 1-year program, and when does it's gonna start?
So we've been funded for 5 years. We just get paid yearly. We'll get our allotment for 1 year. So this allotment is for fiscal year '24, which starts October 1.
October 1. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Councilor. At this point, I entertain a
Motion to
motion.
send to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
There's a motion
Second.
on the table, properly second discussion. I hear none, so at this point, I call the questions. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you. Ms. Miller? Item on the agenda is item 345-23, which is the authorization to spend grant funds for the amount of $405,377 fiscal year 2024 PCAP 911 support and incentive grant. Rosa Charper, she's here with us again. Welcome. Explain to us this grant, this $405,000.
Our
What is this
favorite
for?
person.
Yeah, we need to see at least 71 times. I mean, times 2.
Good evening, council. My name is Rosa Shepard from the Lawrence Police Department, and I am here to present the grant for the supporting incentive given to awarded to us by the state, by the 911 state. This is a grant that we've been receiving for a couple of years. We use this grant to pay for new equipment, specifically for the 911 department, and it pays for the salaries and overtime of the call takers, as well for police, for any police office that we're going to be working with in the department as overtime.
You mentioned new equipment for 911 department, salaries for the call takers, and what else?
Overtime for the call takers, as well for the officers that will be working in that department in specific, for the 911 department. No, the other one is for the training. No, the training, we have one for supporting incentive, and then we have the training grant. There's 2 different ones. Yeah, this one is for equipment, salaries, and overtime. This one is specific.
Councilors, any questions in regard to this grant? Well, I have one question. How many, I mean, these departments, like percentage-wise, you probably don't have the answers now, but I mean, eventually you might get an answer to us. Percentage-wise, how much this department depend on grants and how much depends on the regular budget that we have for the city of Lawrence?
I would say closely half and half, just because we do need grants to fulfill the equipment for the department. And the overtime piece, part of the grants definitely help a lot because the police department, I probably have seen the budget, runs a little bit over $500,000 just in the deficit every time with overtime. So these grants, we definitely, they are really important, especially for any equipment that we require for the police department, as well any cruisers.
Any cruisers? Did you find-
Police vehicle, sorry. Yeah, equipment, the police vehicle. Yeah.
Okay, is this grant is also for cruisers?
No, this one in specific is just equipment for the
Just
911
equipment,
department. My apologies.
Councilors, any questions in regard to this grant? I hear none, so at this point, I entertain a
Motion to
motion.
send to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
All right, there is a motion on the table to send this out. There is a motion to send this out to the full council with a favorable recommendation, properly second. All discussion? I hear none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Next item will be item 34623, which is the authorization to spend grant funds of up to $181,609 fiscal year 2024 PCAP 911 training grant. Please explain to us the difference between the two grants and how we're going to be using this.
The training, the 911 training part is just to train any officers to stay certified. It also gives the opportunity to hire a training for the office to stay certified, and we pay any pay for the overtime that they're going to be used while they're taking these classes.
So, for training to keep the officers stay certified.
That is correct, to stay certified under the 911 grants guideline.
Any questions in regard to this grant? So, Levy.
We usually apply for these grants every year. Every year. Yeah, no, we will apply for this grant for over 7 years already, and we'll be receiving this grant. Or being awarded the grant, sorry.
Councilors, any questions? Okay, sorry.
It does not. It does not have a different type of grant.
Okay, thank you.
That's a different grant. That was $25,000 back then, 2017. All right, councilors, any questions in regard to this grant? I hear no, so at this point, I entertain a motion.
Motion to send to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
All right, there is a motion on the table, properly second, discussion. I hear none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. So next item we have on the agenda is item 34723, which is the authorization to spend grant funds for up to $249,928.40 fiscal year 2024 body-worn cameras grant for MA Executive Office of Public Safety and Security. Rosa, again, explain to us this grant. This is something new, I guess.
No, we had applied for this grant in the past, and we're being awarded. But I just probably Simar has, I brought with me Simar. He probably might be able to answer a lot more questions than I am, just because we had this grant in the past. We had not been able to use it. We are applying one more time to see if we can get awarded. And again, he should be able to explain a little bit more about the grant, since we had it before and we were not able to use it.
Okay. So this grant, is dependable of something else. So let's talk about that, I guess, right? Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Council. My name is Sergeant Mike Simon. Good evening. My name is Sergeant Mike Simon of Lawrence Police Department. I am currently the manager of the hopefully soon-to-be Body Worn Camera program for the Lawrence Police Department.
All right, so tell us why, I mean, I'm glad that we get this grant, but how come we haven't used it in the past? And what's the repercussion and the negotiations and around all that stuff?
That's a great question, Mr. Chair, and the reason being is we had previously applied for 2 grants, this EOPS grants for $249, and then we had a Department of Justice federal grant for about $112,000, for a total of $360,000. Unfortunately, it expired before we could use it, and the reason we haven't used it is because we have to obviously agree on a contract with the vendor, and then also there would be some union negotiations to approve the body cams by both unions within the police department. So we reapplied for this grant, and they provided it yet again for $249, and the DOJ grant expired, and we weren't able to reapply for that.
So do we have any update on the agreement between the actual union and the city when it comes to this grant and the fact that they're gonna, if we get an agreement?
Yes, what I can say is that both unions, the Patrolmen's Union and then the Spare Officers Union, are currently in contract negotiations with the city, and both unions, and I know I speak for both unions, the majority of officers welcome the body-worn camera program. We just have to ratify both contracts that would include that clause in the contract on body-worn cameras.
Councilors, any questions? Councilor De Rosario? I mean, Councilor Infante.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I have a comment, and I'm glad to see that it's Sergeant Samard here in front of us because, and I always mention this, the ride-along that we did with Sergeant Samard, there was a I know the city of Methuen, I believe, has body cameras. I think it's needed here in the city, and I personally, as a counselor myself, I welcome it, especially after what I saw after the ride-along with you, Sergeant. So just so my colleagues can know, I was myself and Council President LaPlante, and the sergeant was basically like followed by this young man, and it was a situation where if I was not there, I wouldn't have believed, to be honest, I would have not believed you if you were to tell the council the situation. And that situation ended up, it ended with an arrest. And when we were at the station, and again, myself and Council President, we were witnessing the whole thing, this individual was trying to mix it up, saying that it was, you know, the sergeant and all of that, but we clearly saw the intimidation that this individual was trying to put on Sergeant Samard that ended up leading to the arrest. And like I said, if it wasn't because I was personally there, I wouldn't have believed you or the police department with this situation. So cameras are definitely needed, and I know as an individual counselor, I'm in support of it.
Thank you, Counselor. And that evening, and again, I appreciate your willingness to go on a ride along, and I extend that offer to the rest of the council too, just to see what the police officers go to on a daily basis. But I know that Chief McCarthy, who's here, is in favor of it. So is the mayor, and I'm sure the council is too, because it's the best tool for transparency within the department. And that evening was just a snippet of what I went through that night on patrol. You can imagine what every officer goes through on a daily basis in the city. We have a phrase that we often say at the police department, only in Lawrence, and sometimes the crazy things happen that the body cameras will capture, and it will help you as a government to thwart any sort of lawsuits that may arise from frivolous claims of police brutality. It would also cut down on the cost of court, because most cases will be adjudicated a lot quicker, because the lawyer will see the camera and say, there's no sense in going to trial, so that'll save on officer overtime. But in the long run, it'll save on lawsuits that, for use of force, and then complaints that come in on a daily basis because an officer who was professional gave someone a ticket, and that person feels they shouldn't have gotten a ticket, will then come to the police station and embellish, and will lie and say that officer was rude, he swore at me, whatever, just to try to get out of the ticket. So there's so many factors that body cameras will help our department, and I can't stress enough that. I'm glad that hopefully you accept this grant and that we can move forward with a ratification of both contracts and get body cameras.
To end my comment, and I'm glad that you mentioned police brutality. I'm sure, and I know there are things that we need to work on as a department. The department, as much as in support, and I defend the police department, I know that no department's perfect, and we have to, work on certain things, but I do agree with you, Sergeant, that this was going to help tremendously, and for us as a city to figure out where we need to improve and better support the department and change the environment overall.
I agree, Counselor. Thank you.
Councilor Rosario?
Thank you. Counselor, I don't like to call you sergeant. It's Counselor. This camera will be in every policeman in the station, or will be limited? And when it comes to data, how much data will this equipment will be recording?
Another great question. I know if it was up to Chief McCarthy, he would want every officer to have a camera because it's going to protect our department. It's going to save us from liability. It helps us. It helps that person behave because he now knows he's being video recorded. So we hope to get, I would say, probably 160 cameras would pretty much outfit every officer that engages the public. You might have some admin people that won't need it. We could have some spares that if they did work a road job or an overtime shift, they could grab one. But I hope every officer who engages with the public has a camera. And again, it depends on what vendor we go with, but it'll be attached to the chest. And the retention period will be, and that's the majority of the cost. The camera so much is not the high-priced item. It's the cloud-based storage that we're going to have to purchase. Some of them work on a server, but with all the video evidence we have and electronic evidence we have in Lawrence, we would need the cloud-based software. And some of the better cameras like Axon will have that third-party storage that we need that will retain it for as long as we need. So if you have a homicide or you have a serious incident that's on camera, it would be pretty much saved forever. Say you have a traffic stop and it's a verbal warning, we probably have a retention period of 6 months. But again, it would be something that the city and probably the council will have a say in for the retention period so we can save that video recording for that amount of time that we agree on. But again, there's examples across the country that departments adopt that we would explore and then obviously get approved by not only the council but the police administration.
Councilor Levy?
Thank you, Council Chair. So the camera is going to be recording like it's for how long? For what is the period, or how does it work? So you got to the police department, you pick the camera, you put it on, and from there, how does it work?
So each officer would be assigned a camera. They would also be assigned a docking station. So when they come to work, they would leave roll call, they would go to the docking station within the department, and they would pull their camera off, and it's assigned to their ID number. So they would wear that camera, and then it would be activated for certain reasons. For example, when you hit that blue light in your car to pull someone over, that camera would be activated. We can also get the option of when they take their firearm out of their holster, it would activate the camera. For instance, I go to a call, I get out of my car, I'm going to activate that camera immediately. I go to a domestic, I get out of my car, I'm going to activate that camera immediately. And then it's going to record until I go back to the cruiser and the call is over. And then it's going to get assigned a number where everyone that's at that scene, if we get this certain system that hopefully we do get, it's going to include all the cameras that were on scene. It's going to attach it to that one file number, so when the court calls, the city council calls, the mayor, the chief, they're going to say, I want all the cameras from that incident. We're just going to go to that reference number, and we're just going to press send, whether it be to the DA's office or to the mayor's office or to the chief. So it's perfected, and it's so transparent. There's audits that are done, and you can pull any camera up at any time and request it for any reason, so.
So the camera to not start by itself, you have to push something to start doing it. What happened if you forget to do that?
Another great question, Counselor, and that does happen. So that's where the policy and procedures come into play, which I have a copy here. It's a draft copy. Again, it does happen, human error. If it continues to happen, then it becomes progressive discipline. So sometimes you have no choice, because if you put that blue light on in your cruiser, it's going to activate that camera. So again, we have to police ourselves, and that's what the supervisors are for, that, hey, Officer Rivera, you didn't turn your camera on again. One more time, you're going to get suspended, what have you. But there's progressive discipline. It's in our policy and procedures, and that does happen. So we have to police ourselves.
So if you do not activate the camera and you put the blue light, the camera is going to start by itself.
It'll stop by itself with certain triggers. For example, like I said, the blue light, you take your gun out of your holster. But if you just get out of your car to go get a coffee in Dunkin' Donuts, and then some woman starts yelling at you and there's a fight inside or something happens, you should be turning it on. Anytime you engage the public, you should put it on. So it's going to happen, especially when you first get the system. There's some kinks you have to work out, but overall, it's a great tool, and most officers want that camera on because it's going to protect them. It's going to reduce the amount of injuries because you're not going to be physically engaged as much now because you're on camera. So there are so many pluses versus, pros versus the cons, and it's just it's a win-win for not only the department but also, the city government.
So the camera, okay, so you finish your day, you came back to the office, you give it back the camera, somebody check whatever that happened during your time that you were using the camera and figure it out.
Yes.
Every single things that happen.
Yes, Counselor. As soon as you get back to the station, you're going to put it back on that dock that is going to be required, and it charges it also. Everything is uploaded to the cloud. What's good about that, too, is if an officer goes on a call, they go on a domestic, there's a big fight, and there's a lot of things happening, they're the primary officer. They want to be accurate in their report, not only to protect the officer, but the city also with liability. They're going to be able to review that camera and say, okay, yeah, I forgot that guy actually, the girlfriend jumped on me when I was making an arrest. And then you can put that in your camera. Or they could miss something that they don't remember, but they see it on the camera, and they can write more accurate reports that would help the case. The only instance that most departments where they can't review the camera if there's an officer involved shooting. At that point, they wouldn't be able to review the camera. It would immediately go to the chief's office, internal affairs, and then it would go to the council and mayor before it would be released to the public. So there's certain guidelines, and it protects the city overall.
Who's going to take care of the camera after you come back?
It will stay at the station. And I visited Boston, I visited Methuen, and I visited Lynn, and they have these video, with the exception of Methuen because they're a little bit smaller, but Lynn in Boston has a video evidence room where they have the monitors, they have all the docking stations, and they can tell when the camera's out, they can tell when it's in the dock, and they know where it's at. Boston's fortunate enough to have 2 cameras for each officer, but they have a much bigger tax base.
Thank you. Thank you.
We keep getting grants we might be able to get to.
Thank you so much.
I have a few questions. How many calls we got every year in the city of Lawrence about?
We have quite a few. I don't know the exact number. The chief might know it, but if we don't know it, I could get that to you. But it's quite a bit. We're probably one of the probably fifth in the top 5 as far as calls for service in the Commonwealth. Approximately 65,000 calls a year.
You mentioned that there's 2 unions that we're gonna have to negotiate with. Which one are those? You said patrol?
Yep, the Patrolmen's Union, which is about 100 and I want to say 30, and then the Superior Officers Union, which is the sergeants and above, which is about 30, so. In council, that's common practice to negotiate the use of body cams in contracts, so it's common practice.
How many departments in Massachusetts have this system already out of the 351 cities and towns?
There's quite a few, and with the grants, you see more and more departments getting the cameras, and most of the small departments are getting them too, because the grants are covering, you know, a lot of times the cost of the whole program, but we have quite a big department, so it's just a chunk of what it costs. So, but most of the departments, and I would say because of post and the new police reform, you're gonna see it mandatory within 5 years.
Can we find out for next week how many departments are currently using this?
Of course, Counselor.
Sure, thank you. Councilors, any other questions in regard to this? My personal opinion, I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great grant. It's about transparency, and everybody's gonna be safer.
I agree. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Councilors, at this point, I entertain a motion.
Motion to send to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
All right, there is a motion on the table, properly second. Discussion. I hear none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you so much. Thank you both. Yep. Item 34823, which is the authorization to pay prior year's invoice for the amount of $30,000, 669.37. So, tell us more about this invoice and so far, so on.
Definitely, Council. On the first one, which is the Police Academy, the reason why we're paying this invoice right now is the all administration was getting the emails requesting payments, and of course, as we know, the administration is no longer with us. I recently, at the beginning of August, I received the emails asking for payments. Unfortunately, I was not able to provide any payments because we were in the middle of closing FY23 and opening FY24. But the first line for the academy, it should have been paid. Again, is because not the right people were getting the emails asking when they were sending about getting the payments. For the amount of 184.37, those are unpaid on tolls back in 2018. I did confirm with my clerks that those vehicles were part of the police department. No, they are not anymore, but we are carrying a balance of 184.37 for 2008, from 2018, unfortunately, but those were police vehicles at the time. For this speed radar trailers, we do have we have the speed radar trailer that need maintenance from time to time. We do have quite a few, at least I think I would say 4, that they were not paid. And again, I just started receiving the emails from them asking for payments. And I confirmed with one of the officers, and he said that yes, the repairs were done, just the company was not paid. For the New England's seal coating, I was gonna say it was an event that the police department was having at the what's the name? Pickleball court, and they were not in good conditions. So it was approved that they should get repaired for the event. Again, I did confirm with the officer that yes, the repair were done. The vendor wasn't paid either. And the last but not least is the tasers. The police officers get trained and certified on using the tasers. The tasers. So they certify 7 officers for them to train the entire department, and that is done every year. And that invoice in specific was sent to the wrong person, so it was never paid at the time. I received and that's something that we do. The last item is that is a training that we do every year 7 officers. Once those 7 officers get trained, then we'll train the entire department to do how to use the tasers and to stay certified as well.
Any questions in regard to this item? Councilor Levy.
Thank you, Rosa, for coming back again. So we pay invoices not too long ago that you also find.
I'm sorry?
We pay some invoices.
Yes, I came.
How many more invoices are we can find that we haven't paid from years and years before?
Unfortunately, probably by the close of this fiscal year, I might probably get more emails or more phone calls from other vendors if we haven't paid, asking for payments. Usually what I find out is that they tend to call at the or close to the end of the fiscal year, because of course they know that the municipal is trying to close, so they try to reach out to see if they can get payments. But if we do have the money, we will pay right away. But if they are from prior fiscal year, I explain to them I have to come in front of the city council to allow them to allow me to pay these invoices. How many more invoices we're gonna receive, I wouldn't be able to tell you, unfortunately. I'm just been getting a lot lately. I was just here not too long ago asking for 48,000, I think it was, on invoices not too long ago, and now I'm asking if I could please pay $30,000 with invoices again.
So this is from 2017 and 18, that's what you say?
We have 2018, 21, and 22.
So this is only for repair? Most of them are repairs to the
Most of these
vehicle.
are repairs, except for the first one, which is police recruit. That's when the recruits go to the academy, and just for the new recruits for the police department. That's the first line, which is $22,400, is for the new recruits going to the academy.
And the other one, did you say what that was for?
Then we have unpaid tolls, repair the speed radar trailer, to do the seal coating on the pickleball court in, on South Lawrence on August Street. And the last one is the certification for the tasers. Again, officers, we send officers to the certification. Once they get certified, then they will go and train the police department as well.
But there was also one invoice that was sent to the wrong person. What happened to the payment that we sent it? That we get it back?
No, they were sent to the wrong person. So that's why they were not getting paid. Yeah.
That is what I said, the invoice was sent to the wrong person.
They was never paid. No. Yeah, they were never paid. They were sent to the wrong administration, and they are no longer here.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Questions, councilors?
Motion to send to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
There's a motion on the table, properly second. I call the questions. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Item, councilors, is item 34923, which is the authorization to spend grant for the amount of $546,000 from the Executive Office of the Housing and Livable Communities, 40R Smart Growth Initiative Funds. Daniel McCarthy, the land use planner, is here with us. Thank you.
We've received $546,000 as a part of our, the incentive program by the state that provides money for housing that gets permitted through the 40R Smart Growth Overlay System. This money was for the permits we gave out in the last calendar year, 2022. The money is required by state law to go to capital investments and infrastructure projects. The city has chosen to use this money to leverage the Mass DOT and other interagency construction funds. We use this money for legal advertisements, title examination, land surveys, appraisal fees and engineering costs associated with some of the programs that we're doing. The rail trail, a couple of the intersection projects we're working on, the Amesbury reconstruction. Part of this money will also go to pay for awards for abutting properties for the takings while the construction's going on. We're required to pay abutting properties that are affected by these municipal projects for their land while it's being under construction and how it's affected. So that's where the money goes, and we put it into a fund every year. And last year, I think we had $350,000. We spent all that money.
Councilors, any question? Councilor Levy.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy, you said that you put the money where?
The money goes into a fund that we use for the infrastructure costs associated with these construction projects. So it covers a wide array of projects. I've got a list here. I know we spent $9,000 on land surveys, $57,000 doing title examinations of all the abutting properties on the rail trail and the other projects within the city. We had to do appraisal fees in the sum of $47,460 last year. There were also $65,000 in engineering costs that weren't borne by the programs that we had to make up and use this funding. So the state allows us to use this to make up the difference. Whenever we do a construction project with the state pays for the construction, but we're responsible for getting the initial engineering and getting the soft costs. That means the legal documents and all that stuff for
They
acquisition.
reimburse. They do some kind of reimburse.
We get the project up to some percentage
Okay.
Yeah, so the state will pay 100% of the construction, but we have to pay the money to prepare it for construction.
So how much did we get last year?
We received 546, that's what, last year, I think it was about 350.
So in this year, we are going to receive right now the
546.
46. All right, thank you.
Councilors, any questions? I have a question. So these funds are coming to the city of Lawrence because we are participant of the 40R program.
That is correct.
Can you explain to us what's the 40R programs?
So every time we permit a new unit of housing under the 40R program, which it's the two downtown overlay, the downtown overlay and the Arlington Mills overlay, we get $3,000 for every unit in capital assets to use for infrastructure programs. So it comes from the state capital management funds. We've been doing well developing housing in the 40R districts, so that this 546 probably comes from 4 or 5 different developments in the number of units constructed. So that would represent like $3,000 a unit of, which is $3,000 an apartment.
Councilors, any questions in regard to this item? I hear none, so at this point, I entertain a motion.
Motion to send it to the full council with favor recommendation?
There is a motion on the table. Can I hear a second? Properly second. All those in discussion. I hear none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. And final item of the agenda, and the most important item of the agenda, is item 35023, which is the expenditure of funds of $800,000 for the child care circuit, the Mayor Scholarship Fund, Marta Velez, and the director of the HSS. On behalf of the mayor, Brian De Peña, they're here today. Welcome both, Marta and Maria. Thank you for being here.
Thank you and good evening. Martha Velez, Director of HHS, 155 Haverhill Street. So absolutely, I'm here on behalf of Mayor Brian De Peña and Mark Ianello to ask for a transfer from the stabilization reserve funds of $800,000. And I want to give a little bit of history so that we all understand. We did give you guys a package. I put all the contracts that have been part of this package, and also a chart that kind of explains what we did. So I'm going to take you back to, a dark time when COVID hit us. In September of 2020, the original contract was put in place. The contract was put in place to help families that were working. This is not a program to help people that are staying home. This is for working families in our city and to help the economy and how we were really struggling. There was a lot of essential workers, people that worked in pharmacies, bodegas, factories that had to go to work. Children were in the houses and they had no child care. So it was decided by Mayor Rivera at that point to give the Child Care Circuit Center $400,000 to take care of some of the families. Again, this was not for anybody at home or working from home. It was for the people that were going to work, that didn't have anybody to take care of their children. In November of 2020, still in COVID, we saw that there was a big need, and then interim Kendris Vasquez made another amendment for $400,000 because we saw that COVID, again, we didn't know how long COVID was going to last. It kept going. In June of 2021, we all sat together and we continued to work at the amendments that continue to have to be made in order to keep these families still working in childcare. So we made another amendment for $186,000. And then in the end of June, we put $100,000 into the amendment. That was June 30th in 2021. In August, there was a serious conversation that we were still in, I'm sorry.
So June 2021, you have 186 and what else?
And then on June 16, 2021, we did $186,068. In June 30th, 2021, we did $100,000. And then Maria could break it down to how many families were there as we kept adding families because we saw more people needing to do this. When we spoke in August, we saw, Kendris Vasquez decided that it was good to do two things. And we were setting an example. We had actually gone to a conference where the Department of Education Secretary was asking us what was going on in Lawrence and how they were looking at this. Because in truth be told, the certificates that they give for childcare, there was a 5-year wait period, right? And we knew that no matter what, we couldn't get families onto this. So how were we gonna help families? And the state started to look at what we were looking at. So we decided that we would do, from ARPA monies, at that point, that's the conversation that was being had, $3.6 million of that money would go to childcare. And the reason that was gonna happen was, it was a twofold. It was the fact that the economy has started to go up and everything was getting expensive. Rent was really, really out of control. And we know that in the city of Lawrence, rent is very expensive. Most people aren't making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. People that were making $50,000 would have to pay $300 to $400 a week to have childcare. So we created a scholarship, and it's not a free, it's based on your income. So there is a signing fee that you do pay some of that. It's not just like, we're gonna give you free childcare. We connected, if you look in your package, there is a whole chart of where we added a chart. And this is when the chart was added, when we had that conversation for the $3.6 million, because we were taking into account families that were working. And the state started to look at this. And Maria will go into this more. I just wanted to give you a history of what we were doing and how we were looking at our community and what the community needs were. And families were having to start saying, do I go to work or do I stay home because childcare is so expensive? If you look at what Maria gave you in the package also, base pay for one infant is $14,000 a year for childcare. And then we know that, then we changed mayors and Brian DePena came in, and Mayor DePena we met with him and totally agreed to support the project and continue to do it. So if you see it says $3.6 million, it has both names because the contract was put in place and signed by Kendris Vasquez, But then the mayor came in and he signed the POs. So just the procurement part, I just wanted to clear that. So Mayor Brian DePena has approved 1.5 and 1.5. So he approved $3 million of that. So now we're here to get this to the end of December to give time to families to wean off, and we're asking for $800,000 so that this program can continue till December. I can answer more questions if you have questions, but this is, I wanted to give you guys some history of how and when we were doing. My job was really to create the contracts based on what the mayors wanted, to make sure that the invoices came in and that we drew down and made sure that all the reporting was being brought to us so that we knew how many families were being served.
Any questions to Martha? Councilors, any question in general? Councilor de Rosario.
Thank you, through you. And I really appreciate this. I wasn't a beneficiary out of all this program, but my daughter was. My daughter was actually in the medical field back in those days, and as we all know, they never stopped working. And she was frustrated of where to take her daughter and wasn't making enough to pay, and that's when we read, it had a name, was it Measures? What was the name of it? The Mayor Scholarship Fund. So we made a couple of phone calls, and it was, well, there's no money in there yet, or we run out of money, and then Silver since the announcement was made, and she was on the waiting list. So I appreciate everything that this program has done, and on my daughter's name, so I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. I also want to make sure that you look at the package. Maria did have, who, what, where, when questions if you asked, and also, this just doesn't benefit the child care circuit, because the child care circuit involves a lot of other organizations. So, I mean, if you look at this list, the number of families on a wait list is 64. The number of families being served are 157. Enrolled children is 181 children. And the total number of agencies, is like 15 to 16 agencies that benefit from this. So the wealth is shared throughout the city so that we can all make sure that the economy moves, families keep working in our city, and it is about working parents. It's not a free-for-all. But I think the most that Maria and I are very proud of is that the state, and she just told me this too today, actually took our chart and changed the income. So the state now is not going by $50,000, but it's gone up to $70,000. So it's looking at families. Before, if you made $50,000, you didn't qualify, right, Maria, or $60,000?
It's 50% of the SMI, but like if you make $70,000 a year, family of four wouldn't qualify for a voucher, and you cannot afford childcare at that privately with that salary. So this is really, it covers the families on the financial cliff, and it also covers families that are waiting on the state wait list to get a state voucher. So those are like temporary families that are actually there and can start working immediately instead of waiting for a voucher.
Councilors, any questions?
Bing.
Yeah, please.
Since the inception of the program, 500 children have been benefited. Again, the hope is that they stay consistently in the program, or at some point move from the local voucher to the state voucher, so we can have some movement on that wait list as well. The capacity of the program is about 200 children with the amount of funding we're getting. At some point, we have more. Right now, it's 200 children. Fully, when the program is fully enrolled, it would be 200 children.
With this funding?
With this amount of funding. In the past, we have more than that. We've had up to over 300 children at one point, when we had additional, the bigger amount of funding. But as This program informed policies in the state, so the state actually started reducing the amount of barriers that families have to face in order to qualify for subsidies. And they looked at this program as an example, and what happened is more families are now eligible for the state program. And so we don't, again, the need is not as high, it's still very high in our city, but we were able to transfer a lot of the families that were in need to the state program. So I think 200 is a good
Essentially,
number.
Maria, what you're telling me is that this pilot program that we start, now the state's looking at it as an example for them to set up
Yeah.
the thresholds.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have presented, I will say that's one of the reasons that I was asked to be a member of the Board of Early Education and Care for the state. Mayor Wu from Boston had a conversation with us because she wanted to design a program for Boston using some of the information that we had here. We shared all this information with them so they can design their own program. So there are programs designed according to the needs of the community, which is what we did here with Lawrence. Our community has needs that nobody else has. So they're doing the same. They're kind of replicating this program according to the needs of their communities. And the state is actually changing their policies based on this movement, which started in Lawrence.
We have a couple of pilot programs that started here now, the last 5-7 years. Councilors, so in total, Maria, how many families, you say over 500 children, but how many families we have benefit through this program so far since September 2020?
I should have that number. I only have the number 500, but I can get that to you. It's a little less, right, because some families have more than one child. But for example, as of the last enrollment report, which is when the program was suspended because of the pending funding availability, we were serving, back at the end of July, 157 families, which translated into 181 children. So 181 children, 157 families was when the program was suspended, 157.
And 181 children.
And that's-
Because
yeah.
Some families have more than one child.
Right. That's at one point in time.
Yeah.
I should also say that Martha was saying 21, we have 21 early education agencies in town. These are local economy agencies or businesses getting enrollment and payment for these services. But that also, as you know, family childcare educators are a big part of the economy in our city, and I'm trying to find 162 homes, family childcare homes, are actually accepting these vouchers as well. So they are actually accepting these children with these vouchers and are benefiting from payments as well. So, it's a big deal for our local economy. The money stays in our city, and obviously, children have to be residents in the city of Lawrence. And show proof of employment.
So if a parent stops working, they get taken off of this scholarship and get put on the list for the voucher. But they have to be working in order to
Right.
be in this program.
Correct.
So essentially, Maria, what you're telling me, and Martha, is that we have 160 families, or 160 agencies that are taking these vouchers. So essentially, some of the kids that they take care of are being paid under this program.
Yeah, a little more than that, but yeah.
And then that produce jobs. At least one person. What we'll say, could be more.
I think it could be more.
Do you think that you can provide us with the amount of jobs this program have create? I mean, in terms of the agencies, how many employees they might have, an average, not necessarily have to be like exact. Because I know that out of 160,
162 are family childcare workers,
Yeah.
so they work out of their own home. So that's one.
That's one at least.
One person. So that's 162 educators, and then there's 21 local childcare agencies that I don't know how many people they employ, but I can also, I mean, I can tell you that this program gives stability, financial stability for those organizations because they are able to maintain the high enrollment they need to cover their costs. But I
It will
can,
be safe to say that more than 200 jobs
oh
depend on
yes,
this program?
definitely. You know, I also have local employers. I mean, they have a competitive advantage in our city because they are able to, we are able to provide employees, you know, this program is able to provide employees that can start working right away. That's not the case with the state subsidies.
On the other hand, if we don't have this program, so that means that somebody, one of the two members of the family, is going to stay home.
Yeah.
Correct.
And that's actually happened with some of city employees. Like, there were city employees that were making $35,000, $40,000 a year and then had to pay for childcare. They had like, I have to quit my job, especially after COVID, where like they had to come back to work, right? Because not every city employee like was an essential employee. So some people got to stay home, but when they had to come back to work, they're like, I can't afford childcare at this rate.
Yeah, it really does. It's informing policy in the entire state, which is actually something I'm very proud of, and I testify constantly everywhere else about.
All right. Councilors, any questions in regard to this program?
Yes,
Councilor Levy.
I'm sorry.
Vouchers. Scholarships.
So, no, that's okay. So this program, right, well, as of the suspension of the program, it was 100 and, what was the enrollment that I said? 181 children. So that's 181 vouchers. The program has a capacity of 200 vouchers right now. I think we that's kind of like the magic number, you know, the.
Yes, but this is like a total of 180, how many vouchers?
It's broken up in the receipt, that what
Just
we
right.
gave you, it says it right there.
So, for example, I can use the Merrimack Valley YMCA as an example. They have 10 vouchers that they accepted from this program. So they receive payment for 10 children for childcare. We have all the major providers in the city actually are participating. Kids Start, which are actually family childcare educators, is 19 of them. Child Development and Education has 55, but again, that's family childcare educators. Smaller businesses too, like Da Vinci Childcare Center has 5 of them. Parkside Children's Academy has 9 of them. So you can see the list of all the providers and how many vouchers they had.
And if you also look here, it's like 8 infants, 44 toddlers, 106 preschoolers, so it's smaller kids that, you know, we're helping.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they're going through these childcare agencies and they're being prepared for school. They're not at home, you know, they're being prepared for school. So we're, you know, I really truly believe in this program because I really do believe that if we're gonna think about the kid's future, this is a good way to do it, right? Because if a parent stays home, you know, and kid doesn't have other kids to learn from, doesn't have that structure to learn from, they're behind in school age when they get to kindergarten. They're not prepared like most kids that have been through these programs. And Maria actually did something in the Arlington School where it showed that the kids that had gone through the Child Care Circuit Center or any daycare, they were better prepared to be ready for the MCAS in 3rd grade than kids that didn't go through this.
Yeah, they tested better.
So just wanted to, like, you know.
There's a twofold, you know, benefit. It's like the economic benefit and the family support benefit, but there's also the benefit of early education for the child, which we know our children need because they started many of them started at a disadvantage when they start kindergarten.
I'm not here to make suggestions, but I actually think that this should be part of the school department's, like, scholarship for parents that are working, seriously.
Either way, I would love to come back here over and over.
So I think we should work at seeing how we could get the school department to buy into something like this, you know? Like, really, because it's school kids, right? It's preschool kids going into daycare because they don't have the space in school, but getting them ready to be better educated. I mean, you know, this could be a pilot for what Maria's saying in the state level, but it also could be for us to learn that, you know, kids do learn better if they're in these programs. So how do we get monies from maybe the schools to go into this kind of education, preschool education, and give vouchers to these people that are teaching, and that it helps the economy. I don't know, it's worth having a conversation, I think.
I would love to have a permanent line, obviously, for a program like this in our city, because it really speaks to, like, when you read a city budget that actually prioritizes children, but also equity, it just, you know, it speaks loudly to, it is already speaking really loudly to other cities and towns, so.
Councilors, any questions in regard to this? At this point?
Motion to send to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
All right, there's a motion on the table, properly second. Discussion. I hear none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you both. Motion at this point. John?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
There's a motion to adjourn, properly second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you so much.